All right, so we're going to get into it today. Dr. Kelly Victor comes back with us. You guys have been asking when Dr. Victor is going to rejoin us. Well, this is that moment, and we are delighted to have her back. As you know, Dr. Victor is the Chief of Disaster and Emergency Medicine at the Wellness Company. She's a board-certified trauma and emergency specialist, 30 years of experience, a CMO for the Whole Health Management Company, delivering on-site healthcare services. And she is in a Bachelor of Science from Duke and an MD from University of North Carolina. You can follow her on Dr. Kelly Victory on X. And then Harry Fisher joins us as well. Toxic Shot is the book that Kelly contributed to. Harry Fisher is an EMT that blew the whistle, so to speak, on some of the things he was seeing out in the field. And of course, he was roundly condemned for it. His book is Safe and Effective for Profit, a Paramedic Story Exposing American Genocide. Follow Harry at Harry Fisher, EMPT on X. Let's get right to it after this.
Our laws, as it pertains to substances, are draconian and bizarre. The psychopaths start this way. He was an alcoholic because of social media and pornography, PTSD, love addiction, fentanyl and heroin. Ridiculous. I'm a doctor, for sake. Where the hell do you think I learned that? I'm just saying, you go to treatment before you kill people. I am a clinician. I observe things about these chemicals. Let's just deal with what's real. We used to get these calls on Loveline all the time. Educate adolescents and to prevent and to treat. If you have trouble you can't stop and you want help stop it, I can help. I got a lot to say. I got a lot more to say.
I'm excited to bring you a new product, a new supplement, Fatty. I take it. I make Susan take it. My whole family takes it. This comes out of, believe it or not, dolphin research. The Navy maintains a fleet of dolphins, and a brilliant veterinarian recognized that these dolphins sometimes developed a syndrome identical to our Alzheimer's disease. Those dolphins were deficient in a particular fatty acid. She replaced the fatty acid, and they didn't get the Alzheimer's. Humans have the same issue. And we are more deficient in this particular fatty acid than ever before. And a simple replacement of this fatty acid called C15 will help us prevent these syndromes. It's published in a recent journal called Metabolites. It's a new nutritional C15, pentadecanoic acid it's called. The deficiency that we are developing for C15 creates something called the cellular fragility syndrome. This is the first nutritional deficiency syndrome to be discovered in 75 years and may be affecting us in many ways, and as many as 1 in 3 of us. This is an important breakthrough. Take advantage of it. Go to fatty15.com/Dr. Drew to receive 15% off a 90-day starter kit subscription, or use code Dr. Drew at checkout for that 15% off, or just go to our website, drdrew.com/fatty15. And just for the new year, you frankly, you should be taking this supplement. The cellular fragility thing is a real thing. It was by some very significant longevity experts pointed out to be one of the most significant breakthroughs of 2024. I swear by it. I take it. I've taken it for a while. I saw the research on this coming, and it bore itself out. So please take advantage of that. And you get their prescription. You should just be on this, and that's that. So Harry Fisher will join us in a few minutes. He, again, is a paramedic who has been reporting about what he's been seeing in the field. But before we talk to Harry, we're going to talk to our friend, Dr. Kelly Victor. He really needs no introduction on this show. Kelly, am I remembering correctly that have you not been on since you joined TWC?
Oh, no, I've been on. In fact, that clip you were showing from last year, from July, was well after I came on with those guys. So Drew,
the reason you don't remember, I've been on. Drew, the reason you don't remember is because she filled in as host a couple of times while you were out of town. So she's been on the show a lot more.
That's what I was thinking. No, yeah. I know you filled in a couple of times, but I don't remember that you and I have been on together. But what I wanted to ask was, how has the TWC experience been for you? It's been sort of exceptional for me, and it was even borne out further. I don't know if you're aware this week, because Foster, the founder of Wellness Company's family, runs the air support, all the water drops, the Canadian. When you hear that there's a Canadian company from British Columbia doing the drops on the fires here, it's his company, and we kept in touch with him during all this. It was very reassuring to sort of have him and his dad's take on what was happening here in Los Angeles.
Well, I've really enjoyed it so far. This is certainly, in my wheelhouse. Wellness, health and wellness is certainly a core interest of mine, and a core area that I've built a lot of my career around. I'm a trauma and emergency physician, but I spent years managing health and wellness for Fortune 100 companies and their employees, hundreds of thousands of people. So I love what the wellness company is doing. I think it's not only providing these kits that we were talking about earlier that allow people to be free from the shackles of the system in a time of crisis. So you don't always have to be trying to find an urgent care or an emergency department for the simple things: bladder infections, bronchitis, upper respiratory infections.
The common things.
The very common things, exactly, that the average person, with the assistance of the guidebook and a telemedicine visit, for example, can handle on their own without having to go to the emergency department. More importantly, I think, is what you just were talking about, the idea of getting the supplements, the things that we have learned. And I think that people are now recognizing more than ever, they need to take control of their own lives. People need to take control of your own health and wellness. This is not something that you can just farm out to the biopharmaceutical complex and say, tell me what drug I need, doctor. So the idea of supplementing things, whether it's fatty acids or vitamins, for me, I take lots of things like the broccoli sprouts that the wellness company provides. There are so many things that people can be doing proactively to take care of their own immune system. And I think really that's the future. That's the next decade. I think for us, Drew, is going to be about making America healthy again. Doesn't just mean revamping the healthcare system and the medical insurance system and those sorts of things. It means people getting involved in controlling and taking responsibility for their own health and wellness. If you aren't exercising daily, if you aren't sleeping 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep a night, if you aren't managing your stress, if you aren't eating good, wholesome food, in other words, getting rid of the fast food, the processed food and all that, if you aren't doing that, then you really have to look in the mirror about why you are not in a great state of health, rather than turning constantly to your doctor, the next medication, and God only knows, the next vaccine.
Yeah, I'm actually a little, angry with myself, I think would be the way to describe it, that I've not emphasized diet and exercise more. I've always mandated it for myself, but I've not publicly done anything with it. So it is time. The other thing, you very kindly were the source of introducing us to RFK Jr., which was sort of a life-changing kind of experience getting to know him. I know you know him very well. Do you have any plans to do anything? Are you going to Washington? Has he? Can you tell us what's happening?
Well, I can tell you, I've been offered a number of very compelling positions working directly with Robert Kennedy Jr. At this juncture, I have not accepted or pursued any particular one of them for a number of reasons. I was very, very interested, and I remain extraordinarily interested in serving as a Surgeon General. It's a position that I believe has been wasted for decades. It is one of the most important positions, and most people cannot remember a Surgeon General since C. Everett Koop back in the 1980s. We just went through 5 years of the worst public health crisis that we have ever experienced, and the Surgeon General was nowhere to be seen for 5 years. This is a problem. So I was very, very interested in pursuing that. As you know, President Trump has made a different choice and has nominated Jeanette Nashwat, somebody who you and I both know. It remains to be seen whether or not she will make it through the confirmation process, but I have every reason to believe that she will. And hopefully she will take a different approach to previous surgeons general who have remained totally absent. That is a role that demands somebody who is an excellent communicator, somebody who tells it like it is, somebody who can become the trusted, measured voice of America's doctor, and that's a role I really had hoped that I would have a chance to play. The other roles are not compelling enough for me to pick up, change my life, give everything up, and move permanently to Washington, D.C., and lose all of these platforms, because that's what would happen. So for me, communication is key. Getting the truth out to people in a way that they can understand it is something that I consider to be a skill set. And so the idea for me to be stuck in an office somewhere writing policy papers or working on healthcare policy isn't, I don't believe, the best use of my passions and my skills.
Do you have recommendations? I mean, I'm sort of interested in what all of us can do to support the changes that RFK and Mehmet Oz, I hope, are going to institute, and hopefully Jeanette even too. And are there things specifically that you and I can do, you think, that would support them in the meantime? I think the most important thing we can do, Drew, is to continue what we've been doing, which is getting information, really fostering conversation, fostering the dialogue, fighting against the cancel culture, the censorship, the things that we, God only knows, the mainstream media is still, even with Trump in the office, they are still going to be under the thumb of Big Pharma. Big Pharma owns the media, they own the medical journals, they own the medical schools. So the thing I believe we can do, and that's what I was referencing, I'm not willing to give up my platform to speak openly and honestly unless I'm offered another platform that would be even bigger and better. And that would have to be a forward-facing, really out there on a daily basis in front of a microphone with the opportunity to speak and communicate with the American public. And I think in the meantime, that's something that you and I can continue to do on this platform, as well as, the rest of social media and everywhere that you and I speak out with regard to our association with the Wellness Company, the podcasts that we do, the news interviews that we take. And I think that that's critically important. Yeah, there is a big shift coming, it feels like. I've been fighting for California and Los Angeles in particular for a long time. I've stayed here for the fight. For the first time, I'm sort of hopeful that there might be an opportunity here, given what has happened. And this is the debacle since the debacle. Now we have the fire debacle. We have the virus debacle. We have the vaccine debacle, and now we have the fire debacle. And go ahead.
Well, I'm very biblically based, so I've kind of lost track, however, on which plague we're on. We did pestilence, and we did pestilence and flood and fire. I think famine's next. I got to actually, review. I think we're up to famine at this point. Locusts may be coming as well, but I'm in California right now, and I don't mean to imply that I'm making light of any of this. I am actually horrified and have been very distressed in the past 72, 96 hours with regard to what we're seeing with these fires. Although I am not personally in an area where we would be in danger, we're far enough from LA, but I am watching the homes of good friends and colleagues literally burned to the ground, people whose lives have been devastated, and it is largely the result of unbelievably poor management. The idea that Karen Bass, the mayor of LA, would have cut nearly $20 million out of the fire response budget, and at the same time deploy resources towards building DEI and coming up with a point system where you got more points for hiring this minority person who might fit the gender identity, politics, whatever it is. The DEI initiative taking precedence over actually having water in the damn fire hydrants. I mean, that is unconscionable, and I've really, really been troubled by it.
Well, they aren't governing. Like I told you before, the mic's heated up. And you will not hear complaints about Pasadena. I live in Pasadena. The fire was bearing down on us. And we're fine. There are no complaints about Pasadena. The complaints are about the city of Los Angeles and the county and the state. And it's sort of striking to me that you don't hear Pasadena complaints, and we got hit very hard. And here's why you're not hearing complaints: is the act of nature was wild and intense, and everyone understands it was an act of nature. And then the city and the fire department and everybody did their job. They mitigated. They did the best they could, and they did what they're supposed to do. Everything worked. It was still awful. It was horrific. There's been some devastation. But you can't blame the city or the personnel for what went on here. It would have been worse if we'd been under the management of these yo-yos in Los Angeles.
Right. Well, there's a common theme here when you look at these Democrat-run cities. What I heard come out of the mouths of people like Karen Bass and others at the helm in LA was not dissimilar from what you heard after that horrific terrorist event on the early morning hours of January 1st in New Orleans. They act as if there is no science behind disaster preparedness. I'm a specialist in disaster preparedness and response. There is tremendous science. We know what works, and you do it ahead of time. It wasn't raining when Noah built the ark. Okay, these are things that you do ahead of time. And yet you hear these people get up there and say, wow, here's what we're going to do in response to the fire. Here's what we're going to do next time. The mayor and the police chief and the people in New Orleans said, well, gosh, how would we know that the guy would have driven up on the sidewalk? Seriously? It didn't occur to you that a terrorist might not follow the posted, traffic signs. This is tantamount to saying, well, how would we know they'd bring a gun? It said no firearms allowed. There is science behind this. And if you need to hire a consultant, I'm available. I can help you come up with a disaster plan that is in place so that we mitigate the risk when it happens and stop acting like a deer in the headlights. These elected officials or appointed officials, or whatever the heck they are officials, have totally abdicated their responsibility to the people whose lives and livelihoods and property they were tasked to protect.
Well, I would like to ask your permission to steal your quote. It wasn't raining when Noah built the ark. That is one of the greatest quotes I've ever heard. I don't know if you invented that or if you're quoting somebody else, but it will not leave me soon.
No, it is something that I've used as a teaching point when I teach classes on disaster preparedness and response. This is something that you need to have thought ahead of time. And as I said, I'm very biblically based, and so it comes in handy.
It's a vivid way of describing the shortfalls. Yeah, I'm mortified by the lack of forestry management, which used to be intense. I used to watch it behind us in the hills here, and it just stopped in the 80s. And I remember when it first stopped, it stopped because it was interfering with the migratory patterns of a mouse. And then multiple other environmental groups got involved and stopped everything. And it's like, and by the way, if you actually, Bernie Sanders, this message is for you. If you are actually interested in climate change, all the benefits of all the CO2 reduction that this state has taken since 2003 was completely wiped away by this fire. And if you just measure the CO2 emitted between 2020 and 2024, it wipes away all the progress on CO2 emissions times 2. So it should be your number one. If you're actually interested in climate change and CO2 emission, your numero uno priority should be managing these fires. Period. But it's not very interesting, isn't it?
No, exactly. And this is, once again, how can you be caught back on your heels? Can you imagine Ron DeSantis saying, who knew we were going to have hurricanes, in August? Who the heck would have thought of that?
Exactly right.
Okay. I mean, this is not the Santa Ana winds. This is not an anomaly. These are predictable events. We know this, and there's a way to prepare for it. We know, Donald Trump himself, love him or hate him, was on record saying, look, you have got to clean up and manage these forest floors. You've got to remove, these ready sources of fuel, because all it's going to take is a single single match or a lightning strike or a cigarette butt, and this thing is going to go up, absolutely in flames. And so these are things, it makes me angry, because it's one thing. There are emergencies. There are things that are unpredictable. There are things that happen from which we cannot, or that, for which we cannot practice or plan. But when you have something like fire season, hurricane season, big events where you're going to have hundreds of thousands of people in the street, the Super Bowl, there are ways that we know are tried and true and that will mitigate the risks that are inherent in those situations. And I am angry for the people of Los Angeles that their officials didn't take those precautions.
And the state were a big part of this.
Oh,
so we're gonna talk to Harry Fisher in a second, and Harry's been reporting from the field what he's been seeing. That particularly he's had grave concerns about vaccine reactions. We haven't talked about vaccines, you and I, a little while. What's your current sort of assessment of the state of things? And by the way, I want to also point out, I don't know if you saw Joe Rogan's interview with Mark Zuckerberg. But Zuckerberg now is on the record saying that the Biden administration called his company and berated them verbally, yelled at them until they went after taking down information that he says, quote, was true, meaning they must have known it was true. So the idea of censorship is no longer something that can be debated. We have the Twitter files, we have Facebook now on the record, we have the FOIA documents. We were all censored by these MFers. Now let's try to figure out what was going on. What's your current assessment?
Well, 100%. With regard to Mark Zuckerberg, I wish I thought that he truly had a burning bush sign, but I think this is more CYA. He wants to be on the record saying, "Oh, it wasn't our fault." Whether or not he actually has seen the light, I don't know. There's no question that everything was censored. My viewpoint on the shots, the mRNA shots, is that the data simply keep building and building. They are irrefutable that these shots are neither safe nor effective. We have only seen, unfortunately, the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the cancers that are being caused by these shots. We certainly know, and there's well acknowledged, the cardiac risks, the damage to the immune system, the autoimmune things that have occurred as a result. And the real tragedy with this, Drew, is that the vast majority of the people who've been injured are young, healthy people who were under the age of 50, who had fundamentally zero risk from COVID itself. They all got COVID. 96%, 98% of the population has documented and well known that they had COVID, okay? These are people who would have done fine if they'd just been left alone. But instead, they were maimed, many of them against their better judgment, against their best, interests. They they had to do it to keep their jobs, to go to school, to whatever it is. And so they were harmed, and they were harmed knowingly, because we also have the receipts, based in part by aggressive FOIA requests, that the pharmaceutical companies knew damn well, and they knew it ahead of time, and they lied about it. They hid the information. The FDA was complicit in hiding the information. That's why they tried to keep it suppressed for 75 years, you might recall. Pfizer was aware that a child died during the very limited trials. Moderna was well aware, that these shots went to every single organ system within a matter of hours, that it didn't stay in the deltoid muscle, as you were told over and over again. All that said, despite the overwhelming evidence, and you and I have had multiple conversations with our friend Ed Dowd, who's done a brilliant job of exposing all of the harms, the deaths, the injuries. Despite all of that, they're doubling down. There's already an mRNA injection at the ready for bird flu. They've got one for RSV. They've got one for influenza. And they are absolutely on the fear porn, right now, talking about, human metapneumovirus that's, running through China. which is a big nothing again. The bird flu, which has never been a problem for people other than those in direct contact with infected animals, cattle or birds. Okay. But they're, pushing the idea that we should all be worried about bird flu and you better get your, be ready to get your vaccine. Gavin Newsom in his, declared a proactive state of emergency in the state of California. Jeez. I don't even know what the hell that is. I'm a disaster management specialist. I don't even know what a proactive state of emergency is. But apparently Gavin Newsom does. And he did it on the basis of the fact that one person was significantly ill with bird flu in the state of Louisiana. That person has now recently passed away, but we have a paucity of information, Drew, about what the guy actually died from. We don't know that he died from the virus. He may have died from diabetes or a heart attack.
You can rest assured he didn't die of the virus, because if he did, we would know that.
Yeah,
so we don't know it. It tells you everything you need to know. They hide stuff like that, and so. But the other thing that we're gonna switch gears. I'm gonna take a break here. We have Harry Fisher coming in to talk more about what he's been managing, about some of the stuff he's seeing in the field. You mentioned cardiac events. I've been ruminating. I'm gonna have you just comment on this before I go to break. I've been ruminating a lot lately about something Fryman picked out of the original Pfizer studies, which is that, and this I'm going to frame this because it's what Harry is going to be reports on, which is what happens within the first 2 weeks of taking this vaccine. That's when most of the serious adverse effects of vaccines occur.
Correct.
And if I remember right, or if I'm getting what Fryman picked out of the Pfizer study, they left out of the study anyone they lost to follow-up in those first 2 weeks of study, which are you lose people to follow-up when they die.
Correct. Joseph Fryman picked up in the study, and it's very clear. They didn't consider somebody to be fully vaccinated until they were 14 days following the vaccine. So as you said, they essentially didn't look at those people. They didn't even consider them as vaccinated. They're saying, well, yeah, you had the shot 10 days ago, so you're not vaccinated, so we don't need to look at what's happening with you. And that's when all the bad things happen. That's when the vast majority of people who were having those really profound, sudden cardiac deaths happen. A lot of them, I think, Peter McCullough has also reported that it happens in the first, 3 days for the vast majority of people, and then in the ensuing 11 days. So those first 14 days were critical. So again, it's a way of manipulating the data. It was a way of downplaying it. They knew exactly what they were doing. Believe me, if everybody did swimmingly, they would have reported that. But instead, they changed the guidelines specifically to keep that information hidden from the public, to keep it hidden from the CDC and the FDA and those people who they wanted to promote the vaccines, quote unquote vaccines.
So we will bring Harry Fisher in here after the break to discuss exactly that, what he has seen in the field. Assuming that those are mostly what he was seeing, but there probably are many other things too. You mentioned stroke and other things. You can follow Kelly, Dr. Kelly Victory, Dr. Kelly Victory on X, and Toxic Shot is her book. Harry Fisher, EMPT on X. Fisher is Fisher, Harry Harry. We're going to take a little break back with Dr. Victory and myself. And, Caleb, you have something?
Sorry, Drew, I just noticed that there was a typo. It's actually Harry Fisher, EMTP.
Oh, the P and the T are reversed on my form here. Okay, so it's Harry Fisher, EMTP on X. He would have corrected that for me too. And we'll be back with us all right after this. Wellness Company knows that taking charge of your family's healthcare is a top priority, and being rationally ready, and who knows what the future will hold for us. Now, TWC has a service to cover your family's medical needs, including and especially prevention. For just $100 a month, the One Wellness Elite membership includes 2 free medical-grade nutraceuticals per month, free prescriptions for over 800 of the most common medications, access to concierge telemedicine, available at a moment's notice, and a 15% discount on all supplements and the emergency kits. 15% off the emergency kits. That's quite a saving. So if you're spending $100 or more on supplements and meds every month, this plan will already save you money. If you sign up for a year, you'll save $200. And when you use the link, drdrew.com/CWC, you'll get 10% off the first payment to the One Wellness Elite membership. Check out One Wellness at drdrew.com/TWC and get 10% off your first payment. drdrew.com/TWC. It's all there.
There's nothing in medicine that doesn't boil down to a risk-benefit calculation. It is the mandate of public health to consider the impact of any particular mitigation scheme on the entire population. This is uncharted territory, Drew.
And of course, Paleo Valley, we've been supporting them. They've been supporting us for that matter. Their grass-fed finished beef bone broth is amongst our favorite, minimally processed, comes in 4 varieties, plain vanilla, chocolate, and of course the new salted caramel. New Susan just had some. I'm going to have some as soon as we're finished. I guarantee you that just, for me, it's like drinking hot chocolate and it's protein and it's nutrient dense. It's not processed. They are so careful with how they source this stuff. Sweetened with monk fruit, again, non-glycemic, low glycemic index. Not used so much these days, and it should be. Team, we are pointing out that it boosts energy also. It's a good source of brain energy in addition to muscle energy. Check it out at drdrew.com/Paleo Valley. For first-time orders, you get 15% off. Subscriptions, you get 20% off, and I suggest you do so. drdrew.com/Paleo Valley. Save money and feed yourself with the best stuff, dense nutrients, the beef sticks, the nutrient bars, the bone broth. I know we push the bone broth a lot because it's so much a part of our life here. But those meat sticks, pork, chicken, beef, venison, just exceptional products.
Amazing.
And, I cannot tell you, every time I'm on an airplane, I keep thinking, I really want to eat the food on the plane. I've got these nutrient-dense sticks that are 60 calories, 80 calories. I usually go to the sticks. All right. In addition to Dr. Victory back with us, we have Harry Fisher. As I said, Harry is a emergency response specialist. He's an EMT. Let me get his nationally registered paramedic, NRP. A lot of experience out in the field. His work has spanned Oklahoma, New York City, North Dakota, Alaska. Again, Harry Fisher at EM. I'm going to make sure I get it right. TP on X. And Kelly, of course, here as well. Harry, welcome to the program.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me back on.
So what you heard you've heard the conversation that Dr. Victor and I were having, and I wonder if you have any response to some of our observations and what your sort of update is since we last spoke to you.
Well, there's been a lot happened since we last spoke. Since we last spoke, I've been fired from a job, from my contracting jobs, for not giving the shot. I wouldn't give the COVID shot. I went to one contract and they wanted me to actually give the COVID shots. And I thought about it. I had a night of thinking about it. Like I was praying about it, thinking about it. I even open sourced it on X to ask, my friends on there, like, what do y'all think? Like, if these people really still want this deadly substance, should I go ahead and give it to them as long as I give them, informed consent? Mm-hmm. And I ended up telling my medical director, I was like, I can't do this. I can't do it. I prayed about it, couldn't do it. And they were like, oh, it should be fine. Okay, no worries. And then 3 weeks later, they were like, oh, we saw you have an online presence. We're going to go ahead and fire you. So it was just, I went through that. And, but took me about a month and I've got another job back on an ambulance. But I've got to be very careful. I mean, I've realized that even though we're out of the woods of the mandates per se, the mindset is still there, and you've got to be very, very careful because they want to take your job, they want to take your livelihood. Mm-hmm. But we're still seeing, in regards to what y'all were talking to, and we're still seeing long-term effects, cancers that are just extremely what used to be rare. It's just not rare anymore, and it's happening so fast. Like these younger people are just developing cancer and dying within weeks to months. Right. When used to, some treatment might have prolonged their life for an extended period of time. Now it doesn't seem anything really prolongs it. If anything, it just shortens it that much faster. These people are just coding faster and faster with these long-term issues. Heart problems in the young, strokes. Y'all were saying that it was happening predominantly 2 weeks after the shots were given. I've seen it, 2 weeks, yes. I mean, because I've seen that occur, but I've also seen it up to months to longer. But y'all are right about it, being a wave of events within 2 weeks. It seemed like, if they did a major shot push on a reservation, within a few weeks, we were just seeing destruction. So I agree with your assessment there.
No, you're 100% right, Harry. And I don't mean to imply that you're out of the woods after that 2 weeks, because that is not the case, particularly when it comes to things like these clots that you're seeing, those really fibrous, white, totally unusual clots, strokes, and clearly even the sudden cardiac deaths. Those sorts of things are happening weeks and years out. The scary thing to me is these cancers, because cancer is it lags. It takes a while for the cancers to develop. And like you, I am seeing horrific numbers of where people are calling turbo cancers. And what we mean by that is people who are stage 4 metastatic cancer at the time of initial diagnosis. In other words, they come in, they've got, a polyp that gets found on colonoscopy, and it's already spread to their liver. They already have liver and bone mets. I have 3 people in my own tight circle who were diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, stage 4 at the time of diagnosis, already wildly metastatic. And we're seeing a lot of that. And so, yeah, I didn't mean to imply that you're out of the woods after 2 weeks. It's just that they ignored that uptick in order to falsify their numbers.
Yeah, I'm sorry about your family members. It is brutal to watch. Like it's been hellish, and I don't use that lightly. It's been a hellish situation, especially whenever you have a patient that's in your ambulance and they're not old, like a younger patient. And they've taken the shot because they thought they were doing the right thing, and they know that it was bad, and they know it caused it, and they're talking to you about it killing them. You're essentially talking to a murder victim. Like it's the saddest, most complex mind screw that I've ever been through in my entire life. And I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't have a better way to phrase it. I mean, imagine talking to someone who's been murdered by essentially our government and pharmaceutical companies because of the mass censorship and the mass push of a deadly product. It's a wild time to be alive.
Let me follow up on that for a second here. That you made a comment that's interesting. That do you feel in your circle, the people who you see on a daily basis in your work, Harry, that people are recognizing that this is vaccine related, or what percentage of people do you think still have their head in the sand, or have cognitive dissonance, or just can't acknowledge that this is maybe vaccine related?
Depends on the area I'm in, but I've been in some contracts, and I've been in some places to where all the providers there realize, like 100% everyone knows that it's that.
Wow.
And I've actually had the conversations with them. We've had group conversations in our meetings, but then like corporate will show up and they'll all just mouths will close. They'll be very quiet. And one of my main medical directors that I was at one of the spots, I asked him, I was like, why aren't you silent about this? Why aren't you talking? Why aren't you screaming? And he said, I'll lose my license. I'll lose my job. I won't be able to take care of people. And I said, well, I mean, if we all stay silent, if y'all are all worried about your license, then you're essentially going along with murder. And I know it doesn't look that black and white to everybody, but to me, it really is that black and white, because if every medical professional out there chooses to stay silent for a paycheck, then you are standing up for murderous individuals that are just raking in money and taxpayer dollars, really, to kill your family members, because they are killing your family members. I can't put it any more plainly.
I agree with you, Harry. I mean, that's the pushback that I get from a lot of my colleagues. They say, well, how can I help people, Kelly? How much help will I be to somebody if I lose my job at this hospital? If I lose my medical license or I get sanctioned, how much, then I won't be able to help anybody. So I stay silent so that and I think it's a cop-out. I really do, because as you said, if everybody banded together and had the guts that you've had, that I've had, to speak out, if everybody said, no, not doing it, not giving the shots, they can't fire everybody. Right. They can't fire everybody. They can't function without us. And the problem is, the reason they've been successful is because they isolate you. They peel you off. They use you as an example. And then your other 10 colleagues are afraid to say anything because they've made a spectacle out of you. They cancel me. They threaten me. And therefore, the 10 people around me say, oh, crap, I don't want, them to do to me what they did to Victory. So, I'll keep my mouth shut. when instead, if everybody grew a backbone, I'd say, if you don't have a backbone, go on Amazon and see if you can buy one, because we need people to kind of buck up and stand up. And so I agree. That's been a frustration for me, that people have used that cop out.
And they're going to keep using it, sadly. I mean, people are starting to be a little bit more brave. There are people starting to come out, but sadly, they're more brave now because they've actually lost a loved one, or they're vaccine injured themselves. I mean, the anti-vax community, which is such a weird term to put on us, the anti-poison community. We aren't that many. There's not that many of me's out there that actually didn't take the shot. Like I lost jobs. I stood up, didn't take the shot. Watched from the sidelines the genocide occur, for a couple months until they needed me back again, because they were like, oh gosh, like you said, we can't run this without people. So I watched it, and I've watched it grow into a huge anti-vax movement. But it's not because of people that didn't take the shot. It's because of people that have lost loved ones. It's because of people that are actually injured, that have had strokes. I mean, there's people out there that are really needing help right now. Nurses, I have nurse friends that are just, I talk to them, they're like, I'm on my last leg. I don't know how to support myself. I don't have any help with the medical community because, doctors don't want to talk about my injuries. Like it's just a really, really horrific situation for so many people. But our movement has grown because the injuries have mounted up.
How many calls do you respond to? I'm sure it depends on what community you happen to be in, but ones that you would say are reproductive related. In other words, women who are either pregnant, who are miscarrying, or pregnant are bleeding, or delivering prematurely. What did you see a bunch of things that were pregnancy related?
That was very obvious to see when they did like the massive push. When they did the massive push, that was just extremely obvious, because like there was one shift that I've talked about a few times on X that I had 9 miscarriages in one shift. 9, and that's just ungodly to think of. I mean, it's just astronomical numbers, but 9 miscarriages in one shift. So it was so bad that I had to get people to come help clean the seats and the chairs, because people were just sitting there just bleeding, and it was tremendous amounts of blood. It was just copious amounts of blood would be a better way to put it. I was talking to Dr. Thorpe about this. He's a friend of mine, and he was talking about the massive bleeding, and that's something he and I don't know if you've heard about it, but I mean, they would just bleed and intensive bleeding. So I was noticing that, because sometimes back before the shots, when you run a miscarriage, it just typically didn't look like an abrupto placenta. It's how it was these almost looked like abrupto placenta, because just the amount of blood. I saw 9 in one shift, and that's just one. I mean, after the shots rolled out, it was very obvious that there was something going on with reproduction, which makes you wonder. I mean, my conspiratorial brain, it's like, was there a depopulation agenda? I mean, was that like, because you actually start wondering whenever you realize they're going to censor you for trying to warn people there's a cliff. Like if there's a cliff in front of you, and someone's standing at the cliff who's like, working on that cliff, and he's trying to tell you there's a cliff. Right. And then the government and the people, come and just go, shut up, and move you out of the way. And you're watching people fall off this cliff. It makes you start wondering how deep that rabbit hole really goes. I mean, are they trying to depopulate a certain population? And then
as I say, I can't tell you with certainty. I cannot speak with authority that it was a depopulation attempt, that's why it was crafted. But I sure as heck can tell you what the results have been. And we have seen significant decreases in birth rates around the world. The United States is down somewhere between 6 and 7%. Most of Western Europe is down between 7 and 9%. Certain places like Taiwan are down 26%. I mean, these are really globe-changing numbers. So we are seeing the impact of it for sure. And there are lots of mechanisms by which these mRNA shots interrupt pregnancy, the ability to both get pregnant and then to carry a pregnancy to term. And yes, Dr. Thorpe, Jim Thorpe, is a colleague of Drew's and mine at the Wellness Company. We've talked about this a lot, the impact on pregnancy. So whether or not not it was actually an overt effort to decrease the population. I have my own thoughts about it, like you do. I can't say that with authority, but I sure as heck can tell you what the results have been.
I hate to think that way. I really don't like thinking the worst of people, for sure, but I've seen the worst of mass groups now, like, groups being afraid. And I've also realized now that there are greedy individuals at the top of everything. Let's say there's greedy individuals at the top of the world, and it seems like they will stop at nothing to just make a dollar or power. And I won't put anything past the greedy individual, and I honestly won't put anything past the fearful individual, because I've seen the closest friends of mine, people super close to me, just shun me, push me away, and just roll up your damn sleeve, even when they're seeing people drop dead. So the fearful and the greedy, I'm just trying to pray for them right now, because it's a spooky situation combined.
Part of it, guys, for me, I think. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Finish your thought, Kelly. And I have some thoughts, but.
And Drew, you should weigh in on this. One of the things that I think has happened is that many people cannot get their arms around the idea that this level of evil could exist. That they're saying,
I'm one of those people. I can't do it. I can't do it.
Right.
I can't go there. So, I'm letting you guys go there, but I can't get my head around it.
And I think that's part of the problem, is that you just. So then you look, and I'd say, okay, I would submit to people. I say, I hate to tell you that it's real. Look at what's happening in the UK right now as a little tangent. For years, over 1 million little girls have been abducted and raped and sold into sex slavery and prostitution by bands of Pakistani immigrants. Okay. It is now well known, and it turns out that the police did nothing about it because they didn't want to be labeled as racists. The media wouldn't cover it because they didn't want to be labeled as racist. Regardless, that level of evil does exist in the world, as horrific as that is. And so I don't believe for a minute that what Harry's talking about, that for the almighty dollar, or for control, or to foster an agenda because you think you're bigger than God and better than God and know more than God about how many people should be on this planet, that you manipulate things. Unfortunately, I don't want to acknowledge that it's there, but to not acknowledge it, you do it at your peril.
Agreed, 100%. And then sorry, Dr. Drew, but real quick, remember the Tuskegee experiments? That happened, right? I mean,
right.
Yeah. That evil, we've done that evil, and we know it.
100%.
Well, I have no doubt of ignorance or a belief that you're doing. Social evil always is done in the name of doing good. You know what I'm saying? These people, but that's usually the way social evil gets done. In the Tuskegee experiment, we're going to prevent people from having syphilis. These guys are going to get it anyway. What's the big deal? It was it's like they thought they were doing good, but they were deluded. And in that deluded state, they were evil, just straight out evil. If Nazis thought they were doing good, Mao thought he was. These people think they're doing I'm doing good for humanity. No. Always, if you want, beware the do-gooder, because that is how evil is perpetrated. Look, the prison guards thought they were doing good in Nazi Germany. The people that yelled at their neighbors for having gatherings at Thanksgiving during COVID-19 thought they were doing good. The fact is, that is all evil. I totally agree with you guys, but don't look for a mustache twirling individual necessarily at the top. It's somebody. It's a wolf in sheep's clothing. Oftentimes, that commits social evil. Kelly, you agree with me?
100%. And to Harry's point, and to yours, Drew, COVID was not the first time in history when physicians were employed to perpetrate that evil. And I'm not just talking about what happened in the Third Reich in Nazi Germany. I'm talking about things like the Tuskegee experiment, like the MK Ultra experiment, screwing with people's brains to see if we could make them, that's something that the Department of Defense did. They screwed with people's brains with antipsychotic medications.
It wasn't just it wasn't just the again, people think of MK Ultra, they're going towards mustache twirling. At that Kentucky Institute, they invented the disease model of addiction and invented some of the current treatments we use for opiate addiction. And they were giving people hallucinogenics in huge doses and changing their lives forever, ruining their brains. And
ruining
in the name of good.
And physicians were doing that. So these same people, fast forward 2025, people who are doing gain of function research in this country. I'm not talking about Wuhan, China. I'm talking about the USDA lab in Athens, Georgia. I'm talking about the University of Texas in Galveston and the University of Wisconsin in Madison, places where they are manipulating H5N1 to make it more transmissible between people, something it wouldn't do if left to its own devices. And they're doing it under, as you said, Drew, the guise of, we need to see what would happen so we can develop a vaccine, so we know what the treatment should be. Okay, they never say it's so that we can exterminate humanity and create pain and suffering. They always say it's under the guise of doing something good. But we have got to stop this. We've got to call people on it and say, no, you are obligated to consider the worst possible case scenario. What could happen? How could this go sideways? And it all boils down to lack of informed consent.
Agree with that, with what y'all are saying, because I don't disagree with what either one of y'all are saying actually at all. But in order to stop it, because what's already been done has been done, and we can see the evils that have already occurred. And like you're saying, how do we stop it? And like what I'm saying too, would it be possible? I was talking with some doctors last night on a live. Would it be possible to push like a health freedom amendment to like a constitutional amendment to like a health freedom amendment to where we don't, basically take all the bad that we just experienced and update our constitution somehow, some way for health freedom so we don't ever have to go through it again?
Well, let me answer. I think that's a critical issue. I think it already exists, Harry. What I've been pushing is to go back to the 4 pillars of medical ethics. Those pillars, autonomy, justice, those non-maleficence, beneficence, those 4 pillars exist for a reason. The problem is we haven't been adhering to them. No one has held anybody accountable. So the first pillar of medical ethics is autonomy, meaning you have the right to participate or not participate in any particular intervention, treatment, therapy. And that begins with informed consent. These things are all there. They've been codified, but your average physician under the age of 50 has probably never even heard of those 4 pillars. They don't even teach it anymore. And that's purposeful, because if doctors don't know about it, if you don't even know what the pillars of medical ethics are, you sure as hell can't follow them. And they don't even teach it anymore in medical school. So I would submit that if I were Queen or Surgeon General, I would absolutely say, we are going to return to the basics. Here are the 4 pillars. If you learn nothing else in medical school, you better learn those, and you better adhere to them, and we better start practicing to them. And people need to start demanding that their physician knows what those pillars are and makes a commitment absolutely to follow them.
Sounds amazing.
100%. And Harry, but to your point, Harry, something taking the teeth out of the public health system at the state level needs to be undone. So something's very, very wrong there. And from a operational or institutional or legislative standpoint, you're right, there's something wrong there. I only have a little bit of time left. I want to back off a little bit and let's just I want to tell you my observations and have you guys react to them, because me, Kelly, I'm still like always in this sort of weird contemplative state based on my clinical experience, and I am absolutely mortified by the mandates. I am mortified that young people were getting these vaccines that didn't need it. I'm just I'm with you guys all the way on that stuff, but elderly patients, I do feel like we accomplished something with some of the vaccinating programs, some of it. I have not seen much in the way of side effect from it. And again, if cancer is one of the downstream effects, mean, elderly people's immune function is already kind of not great, and I've just not seen anything out of the ordinary. So it might not be affecting things the way it would in a healthy immune system that's taken down. You know what I'm saying? I did have one serious adverse reaction in a 100-year-old. She had atrial fib and was getting into failure and refused to go to the hospital the way 100-year-olds do, and I had to manage the whole thing as an outpatient. She made it through, made a VAERS report, of course, VAERS, thank you, and then nothing. Made a follow-up, thank you, nothing. Follow-up, nothing. Okay, they must have had a guy look at it and decided it wasn't related to the vaccine, even though 30 minutes after she got the vaccine, she was in atrial fib. But my question is this. I'm thinking about Aseem Malhotra and some of the observations he's had about coronary disease, and I've seen some of this too now, where this extraordinarily rapid development of one vessel disease, highly advanced, just weird things I've never seen before in terms of how coronary disease is manifesting and developing. My own case, I have, I'm on lipid-lowering agents. I've been forever. I had 0.0.0 calcium scores forever. 1 year after vaccine and COVID, suddenly I have a distal LAD lesion. Okay. So the question is, and I've seen things like this repeatedly, and the question I have in every one of these cases, including my own, is how do I tell, mind you, I didn't have an mRNA vaccine. I had the J&J. How do I tell what's COVID? And this is something you and I used to talk about a couple of years ago. How do I tell what is COVID and what is vaccine? I can't. At very minimum, I can say it's spike. I'm guarantee you it is spike.
Right.
And so why are we using a vaccine that's still all about spike? Why not a whole viral vaccine? Why not nucleocapsid? Why are we throwing more spike at the coronary, lining the coronary arteries? Kelly, what do you say to all those questions?
Well, there's no way to definitively prove what would cause your particular cardiac lesion. However, I would suggest that you would benefit from knowing what your spike protein levels are and what your antibody levels are with that assay that Dr. Peter McCullough uses, because as you know, when you get COVID, the virus, you have spike protein in your body only as long as you have the virus in your body, which is a matter of days, weeks, okay? Once you eliminate the virus, you eliminate the spikes with it. So I got COVID. I had COVID for probably 5 days, and the spikes went as I eliminated the virus. That is in contradistinction to when you get, quote, vaccinated. You have now given every cell.
I had the whole viral, though. I didn't have an mRNA vaccine. I had a J&J.
But didn't you get a booster? There's no J&J booster.
No boosters. Nothing. I got one vaccine. Susan got all that. I had a horrible reaction. There's my reaction. I had a raccoon's eye in the morning after vaccination, and I felt like hell. And that is the presenting feature of the thrombotic thrombocytopenic purpura complication of transverse sinus thrombosis, which I thought, here I go. But it went away.
Then there's no reason to believe. Then there's no reason to believe it. This, for me, that this is ongoing spike issue, because you should not be creating spike. So you should get your spike levels checked, and if you, in fact, your spike levels should be 0. You should have, but I would get that checked. I think a couple of things you were intimating about the elderly patients, and I'd be interested in what you've seen in terms of what you consider might be vaccine related adverse events from the elderly. As you know, my mantra in medicine is that everything boils down to a risk benefit calculation. Given that it was the elderly who were the only people who were really at significant risk from COVID in the first place, you could have convinced me very early on, meaning in the first weeks, that if my parents were living, for example, I might have suggested they get the shot, because I'd say, look, we don't know anything about the shot. It's experimental. It's brand damn new, and I can't say
that would be your informed consent. You would give her that kind of consent, right?
I would have said, but given you're 94 years old and infirm, if you get this virus, it could be really nasty, and I think it's worth the risk. That's informed consent. But let me hand it to you for a minute here, Harry, because I want to hear what your thoughts are on the elderly.
Well, Okay, well, real quick, you have the perfect control group. You have those of us that actually didn't take the vaccine. You could easily tell that, hey, we're not dying of lesions and everything else right now. Predominantly, most of my frontline friends that stood strong didn't take the shots. They're healthy as a horse. The other one's sick all the time. But I mean, if the government or pharmaceutical companies really wanted to know that, you got a control group. But that being said, they don't want to know that. And with the elderly, they were giving shots to elderly people in the nursing facilities without true consent, without informed consent. I was seeing dementia patients laying there because they would go in and
100%.
shot after shot after shot. And then the nurses that were working in those elderly or those senior living centers, I've had the nurses literally say, as soon as we gave the shots, there's just codes. That room coded, that room coded. So there was mass die-offs in the facilities. I think a lot of those mass die-offs have even been blamed on loneliness. They blamed it, which some people die of loneliness. I'm not going to knock that. I mean, they were very lonely during the lockdowns, but they would go in and mass vaccinate their centers, and then we would get call after call after call to the centers. So, but I think the numbers, I think we got enough data to show that J&J did damage. People have died from the J&J. They even pulled the J&J. They pulled it, right? We've got enough for all the numbers are there. It's what's wild. It's like watching a slow motion train wreck right now. I'm going, hey, why are we still talking about the shots and even giving it? Why hasn't this been pulled off? Why hasn't some of these people been arrested? Can we get to the arrest in Nuremberg too? Because I'm sort of waiting on that. That sounds bad, but bring it on. No, if we don't do it, what do we do? I mean, we just let people get away with murder?
No, you are spot on. And that's where I started with. The data are irrefutable. We don't need more data. We have all the data we need. These shots should have been pulled from the market within the first 30 days. Yeah. They should have been pulled by February 1st of 2021. We already had enough. And if you look at historically, other vaccines go back to 1976 when the swine flu vaccine was rolled out. It was pulled from the market after there were 50 associated adverse events. It was pulled from the market. They said, oh, whoop, this is a problem. In the first month, we had thousands of associated adverse events from these shots. And yet here we are, as Harry said, we're in January of 2025, and you still have Leanna Wen on CNN talking about get your booster. Have you lost your mind? Yeah. I mean, when's the last time you heard of somebody getting hospitalized or even needing to go to the doctor because of COVID? I mean, seriously, it is tantamount to the common cold, yet they are still pushing these shots. It is absolutely unconscionable. I don't understand it. And at the risk of never, ever, having Bobby Kennedy speak to me again, I will go on record and say that part of the problem, I believe, is that Donald Trump has refused to even give tacit acknowledgement that maybe these vaccines weren't everything they were cracked up to be. Maybe they weren't actually beautiful. Maybe they didn't actually save millions of lives. And maybe he was misled. I have said over and over again on this platform and others, there are ways for him to message that and say, look, I was misguided. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. I'm not an epidemiologist. I had no reason personally to understand this. And unfortunately, I was surrounded by some people who gave me very bad direction and advice. But if he won't even intimate that, if he still keeps saying what a great thing they were, it's going to be tough.
Agreed. It's wild to watch. It's really neat to see his base go one way and still vote for him, because his entire base is like, I don't like the shots. And Trump's still saying, I love the shots, but his base will still vote for him. And, I'd rather have Trump than Biden. But it's just really weird situation to see an entire base say, whoa, don't like it when he says that, but still goes right along with it. I don't understand that at all.
Well, guys, we're going to have to wrap this up right here. Harry, I'm going to say goodbye to you. Follow Harry Fisher, EMTP on X.
Great to see you.
Hopefully we can talk to you again soon. I hope your work gets reinstated and it's satisfying work for you. Thank you for the service.
Thank you. Bye, y'all.
Bless you.
Harry Fisher, buddy. And then Kelly, where shall people look for you? Where do you want people to go? Where do you want people to follow you?
Well, my Twitter is the best, Drew, at Dr. Dr. Kelly Victory. I'm pretty active on Twitter. And I'm doing, like you, a lot of interviews on different news outlets, including, Newsmax and Real America's Voice and lots of others, where we talk about, what's timely with regard to, frankly, the continued beating of the drum, the fear porn, as I call it, whether it's bird flu, human metapneumovirus, RSV, COVID, whatever it is. We're trying to, and you and I both preach what I call, you call rational readiness, this idea of we are not fear mongers. We are not preppers. We're not suggesting that you stockpile baked beans and toilet paper. What I'm saying is that it makes sense to have on hand the medications and the sorts of supplies that you would need so that you are not at the mercy of the system, particularly in a time of crisis. Whether it's a hurricane, an earthquake, whatever it is, a riot, you don't want to have to be that person who's looking for an urgent care.
Fire. And we were so grateful to have 100%. Our kits, particularly that field kit. We were carrying that big box around with us because it was useful.
Right. And so, I think that that's something that the wellness company has really brought, and it's a part of the medical freedom movement. And it's the part that's saying we are willing to put patients over profits. We are really focusing on what will truly make Americans healthy again, which is not just another pill, not another therapeutic. And for me, it's really allowed me to double down, as I said at the beginning of the show, on my interest and passion for health and wellness, and the idea that the best way to be free, medical freedom means do not shackle yourself with ill health. Do not allow yourself to be shackled with chronic disease. And your lifestyle has a lot to do with that.
Kelly, thank you for joining us. I hope we'll see you again soon. And if an opportunity arises between now and then, let's go to DC and meet with all our friends over there and see what we can do to be of use.
I would love it. Anytime.
All right. Thank you, Kelly. Dr. Kelly Victor, everybody. And I know you all love it when she's on the show. Let me just quickly check the restream. Susan, I don't know what the growth factor thing was you were talking about there. I think that was you.
Somebody said that somebody who had 6 children die from the vaccine.
Oh my gosh, that's wild.
And we can interview them. I think that's what Mila.
Bilbo is praying for me and forgiving me for something. I'm not quite sure what. But I think let's put the schedule up, Caleb, so people can understand what's coming. There's still some secret guests that Emily Barsh is keeping close to her chest. Jeff Dye is our next guest, hopefully in here. Dave Rubin coming on the 16th. Max Viva Fry on the 15th. Dave back. Salty Cracker back. Peter McCullough back on the 30th. So look out for January. Is going to be a very busy month. We have some really interesting guests that we are efforting. And if we get them, it will be a headline. So look forward to that in January and February. Susan, anything else for you? Or Caleb?
No, we're good.
My toddler ran in the room right as you said for me to come on the mic. Let's see. Wait.
Timing is everything. We heard her. All right. There we go. Bring her in. Hey.
Hi. He can't hear you. He's just looking at all the screens. Say hi.
Mini me.
Yeah. He's going to be in here assisting me very soon.
All right, everybody. Have a great weekend. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Dr. Victory. Thank you, Harry Fisher. And we'll see you on, let me double check. I always screw this up. I believe it's Tuesday at 3 o'clock. Is that correct, everybody? Tuesday at 3 o'clock. Jeff Dye. We'll see you then. Ask Dr. Drew is produced by Caleb Nation and Susan Pinsky. As a reminder, the discussions here are not a substitute for medical care, diagnosis, or treatment. This show is intended for educational and informational purposes only. I am a licensed physician, but I am not a replacement for your personal doctor, and I am not practicing medicine here. Always remember that our understanding of medicine and science is constantly evolving. Though my opinion is based on the information that is available to me today, some of the contents of this show could be outdated in the future. Be sure to check with trusted resources in case any of the information has been updated since this was published. If you or someone you know is in immediate danger, don't call me, call 911. If you're feeling hopeless or suicidal, call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 800-273-8255. 273-8255. You can find more of my recommended organizations and helpful resources at drdrew.com/help.